This is your host, D Wells of Why Not You, and we are about to do something a little different today. And this episode, we're just gonna dive deep into discovering your true identity in God. And so we're gonna go into, um, embracing forgiveness, sharing your gifts, operating in your authentic self. Um, but also, you're just gonna hear how passion and God's power can influence your life and others when you actually know who you are, because you have to know who you are in Him first before you can actually operate in that power and that passion. I mean, you got so many things right now competing for your time and your life that can derail you. But once you know who you are, you're not going to allow anything to derail you because you're going to be grounded and those roots are going to take place. So, hey, without delay, let's get into this. Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of Why Not You with your host, Derek Wells, where we talk with leaders and entrepreneurs who are doing what they love to do. They'll share insights into overcoming adversity, the systems they use, along with the power of personal growth, faith, and much more. Our goal is to empower you with personal growth, faith, and a plan for ultimate success. Now, here's Derek with another life-changing story.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is your host, D Wells of Why Not You, and I am here today with a special guest, yours truly. Yeah, we're about to get it in. Hey, I'm just excited about this opportunity because we're going on this transformation journey. Uh, I know there's a lot of people out there who are just they're stuck, they're stymied, they're stuck in a place where they're trying to figure out like, how do I move from the past to the present so I could be the best version of myself, so I could actually do the things that God has called me to do. And I know like one of the excuse me, man, one of the biggest things that people struggle with is identity. For whatever reason, people who struggle with identity, they have a poor self-image, a poor perception of their self, which leads to a lot of confusion just about life and direction. And you don't know, if you don't know, like, you don't have an idea like where you come from or what your purpose is, how are you really, how are you gonna really know like who you are if you have some type of identity issue? And so I love what um, one of my favorite authors, one of my favorite speakers, Dr. Miles Monroe, he stated, um, this is powerful. This is powerful. He said, your greatest enemy is not the person standing in front of you, but the person within you that needs to be overcome. This is powerful because, a lot of times our thoughts, our beliefs, they shape who we are. Many outside influences can easily distract us from becoming who we need to become. And if we get caught up in this false reality of feeling like we need to either compare or we see so many things on social media, we tend to adopt some of these tendencies. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody mimic another person and they done it so much, or they just want to be like this person so badly that they lose sight of who they are? It's not in your DNA. Your DNA is for you only, not to be somebody else. And so there's a lot of people that actually struggle with that. And so if you actually get caught up in this, you'll never know who you are or know who you're supposed to be. And it's essential that you understand this because it's it really falls on your shoulders to be in a place or get yourself into a place where you can actually make the changes necessary to overcome. And a lot of this has to do with just being in a place where you can actually confront yourself and be down to earth, be real with yourself, because that's what it's going to take. That's what's going to take. And it's a process that just begins with, how you really view and think of yourself. And so when you look at yourself in the mirror, who do you see? Do you see a winner? Do you see a loser? Do you see somebody who's thriving? Or do you see somebody struggling? But I think the biggest question of all is how you see yourself. Does it align with how God sees you when he looks at you? Now this is it's a real struggle. It's it's something that people need to identify and to be in a place where they really know and can actually dig and be in a place where they could just become more like just more self-aware, self-aware of their tendencies, more self-aware of their behaviors, um, being able to identify different patterns, how you speak, how you act, um, and is how you act. I mean, is it really you? Is this how you act? I mean, do you feel comfortable with how you act and some of the things that you say? Because I know one thing, our identity is not material items. It's not in our clothes. It's not in the house that we live in. It's not the car that we drive. Um, it's not the shoes. It's not based on some kind of title that we have in our position at work. You know, I come across so many people. Um, I just never forget this one story that was shared with me. It was back in the day when I used to work for a home builder, and uh, this particular lady purchased a house for her mother, and we were just talking about being content, and you know how some people actually look to buy things that make them happy. So she shared a story about one of her friends who is multimillionaire, lived in El Dorado Hills, which is a place east of Sacramento. And this particular friend was a stay-home mom, but at the same time, she had a nanny to take care of her kids. And she said whenever she felt like there was something missing in her life, there was a void that needed to be filled, she would go out and purchase a Mercedes or buy some jewelry to fill this empty void. But there's something to be said about that because, you know, if I know, like for me personally, when I think there was a time and place in my own in my life where I figured I needed to have the latest, whatever it was, or if only I had this much money, or if only if I had this, um, I'll be looked at as, oh, this boy, he got it going on. It's really not about that because the person that we really need to be mimicking, if anybody, is Jesus Christ. He's the one that that went against the grain for us, right? He overcame a lot, and he's like that perfect example. And so our identity needs to be in God. So we can't. That's why I just love this particular verse, you know, in Romans, where it says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may discern what is the will of God." And I vividly remember when my mentor challenged me to 5 questions. He asked 5 questions, and I struggled with them at first. But the more I just kind of sat down and reflected, things just started opening up. And so the first question he asked was, "Who are you? Where are you from? Why are you here? What can you do? And where are you going?" All questions that really make you think about your purpose, um, your life, your creation, because you weren't created just to exist. Um, what is your vision for life? What has God put on your heart to do? And how are you going to make it? How are you going to manifest these ideas and dreams that God has placed in your heart to do that aligns with Him? And so for me, you know, upon answering these questions, I could literally say, um, that my journey of transformation, that's when it really became deliberate, when those questions were asked. And I had to ponder those. And that's when I realized that time is of the essence. And I know there are countless of individuals worldwide just leading these unfulfilling lives due to fear, failure, settling for comfort, and they're never in that position where they can uncover their true potential. And that's sad because only if they knew who they were and where they came from, they would understand why they were here and where they're headed. And so I remember uh hearing that saying, uh, and the truth will set you free. It came from John, let's say it was John 8, 8:30, I think, when the disciples were kind of questioning Jesus, or it had to do with something like, with who they said Jesus was or is. And just, as I just think about that word free, and what that means. I think when I think about it, I just think, somebody is liberated. There's no more limitations. There's no more restrictions. Um, so many times, we place, I mean, it's based off the way we think, because we have these self-imposing views or thoughts about ourselves. And we think about it so much, we end up becoming what we think. And so, with that said, it's like, okay, your lid is right here. You can't go any higher because of how you think. But when you're free and you know who you are, you know what you're capable of doing, you're busting through those barriers. You're busting through those barriers, so you're not worrying about anything else, nobody else. You no longer have those those moral obligations that or responsibilities that you or somebody else imposed on you. And so you don't have to worry about that stress. You're not taking on any more of that kind of stuff, because what it ends up doing, if it's not dealt with, it stymies your growth and it limits you from taking any kind of action. You just become paralyzed. And so in order to break through that, you really have to shift your mind and really understand that you have everything you need within you. Everything. Another thing, you have to believe it, because it's almost like, okay, here you have a mantra and you're saying this mantra every day. But if you don't believe it, it's not gonna work for you, because you already started off on the wrong foot. And it's like your body already knows. Your body's already keeping the score. So it's like you're trying to trick yourself. It's not gonna happen. And so you never know who you are, which is a child of God. A child of God, also an ambassador. An ambassador. We're gonna read that scripture too. That comes from um 2 Corinthians 5, when he's actually explaining, we're talking about we are ambassadors and how we've been reconciled. But no matter how you see yourself now, your creator sees you differently. And so if somebody else sees you differently, they see you better than you see yourself. Why can't you have that same mindset about yourself? If your belief in yourself is subpar, that means your confidence is going to be low, and you're going to be afraid to take any kind of action to move you in the direction that you need to go, the path that was created specifically for you. And I get it. I was in the same boat one time where I just had like these self-limiting beliefs. Um, I really had to get out of my own way to make some things happen. But I also knew that in order for me to make anything happen, I had to at least initiate some kind of movement. Because once that movement started, other people started seeing my movement, and they were like, okay, this boy is serious about his his ministry work, or what it is that I'm doing, whether it's with the podcast. Um, and then people just, they want to help. People want to help when you want to help yourself. That's just how it is, right? So getting to a place of that, because you have to, one, you have to get to a place mentally where you could dive off that high dive with peace because it's not easy. And there is a lot at stake if you mess up. Could you just imagine diving off a high dive when you get up there and now all of a sudden you start having these doubts, you start having these thoughts in your mind like, what if I splat? What if I what if I fall off? What if I don't have the right grip to allow myself to do this triple axle, double flip, somersault, reverse axle, mount, supersonic dive? What you gonna do? You're gonna mess up for real. So you can't be thinking about that. You can't be in this place where you allow your thoughts and your fears of the past because that's all it is. It's not present. You make it present when you think about the past. We need to move out of that way. You need to move out of that space. That's why I love the story of Moses. Moses, who, one of my favorite people. Once he was commissioned by God to free the Israelites from Egypt, how many excuses did Moses come up with? He came up with five just to avoid his calling. Just to avoid his calling. And so let's walk through this conversation between Moses and God. So Moses says, "Who you want me to go? Why do I need to go? I'm nobody." God says, "I will go with you." Moses says, "People will ask me hard questions like, 'Who is this God who sent you?'" God says, "Tell him my name. I am." And then Moses comes back and says, "Nobody's going to listen to me." God says, "Perform these miracles to get their attention. Here's the staff. Drop it. See what happens." Moses says, "I'm a lousy speaker." God says, "Who made your mouth in the first place?" "I did. I did." I think, they already say that speaking is one of the hardest things that people have to wrap their mind around. People have a hard time just speaking, like sharing a 2 to 3 minute story about themselves in a group of people, whether it's at work, at school, um, so even around family sometimes. Like, tell me, give me, 2 or 3 things that you love to do. And then all of a sudden, they just kind of struggle with just getting it out. Now let's wrap this part up. Um, this conversation with Moses and God. And so Moses asks or says to God, "Can you send someone else?" God says, "I'll have Aaron go with you. So get moving. I ain't got time to be wasting." Now, can you imagine if God just said, "Moses, you know what? You don't have to do this. I'm gonna find somebody else." That's the last thing you would want, right? If Moses would have missed the opportunity to serve and have this good relationship with God. But if God gives you something to do and you just neglect doing it, you feel apprehensive to move because I know what that's like too. You just feel like this burden. You feel like this pressure, just God putting pressure on you because He's already told you to do something, but you're apprehensive. You don't have that belief, you don't have that faith in yourself to carry this out. You're worried about what other people are gonna say or think. And people ain't worried about you. But I know one thing, when God gives you something to do and you do it, you're gonna know that God was in it because you wouldn't have been able to achieve what you just achieved without Him. And so it goes deeper than, oh, my feelings or my emotions. Get out of that stuff. You got to get out of that. You got to get out of that place. So everything you need is within you. But one of the things you have to do is tap into your resources. You have to tap into God, and you have to renew your mind and tap into that. The 6 inches between your ears is powerful. That has the ability to transform your life into to life you're supposed to have, that purpose, passion, and powerful life where you're no longer settling. You're operating in a way you need to operate. I mean, it's just going to come, it's going to get to the point where you just become a new person, unrecognizable even to yourself, because you no longer have these self-limiting beliefs and self-limiting behaviors. That's where you want to get to. That's where you want to get to. And then here's 2 Corinthians 5, starting at verse 17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. Now all things are of God, who has reconciled us to himself through Jesus Christ and has given us the ministry of reconciliation. And when you think about reconciliation, all that is unifying and reestablishing relationships. Back to the scripture. That is, that God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself, not imputing their trespasses to them, and has committed to us the word of reconciliation. That means the slate is clean. You can start over like new. Here it is. Now then, we are ambassadors for Christ, as through God we're pleading through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God, for he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. One, we're new creatures. Two, old things have passed away. Three, all things became new. All things. Four, we are ambassadors for Christ. Five, Paul uses the word reconcile 5 times, emphasizing just the significance of unification and coming together, connecting and reestablishing relationships. And it just goes to show, like, how God reconciled himself with us through Christ. We were given a ministry of reconciliation. Um, Christ, God was reconciling the world to himself. Uh, he entrusted us with the message, basically the gospel of reconciliation. And so I mean, that right there, I mean, that's powerful, but you're also given authority, because if he's entrusting you with the message, that means you need to go out and tell. There's something to be shared. Um, with that. And so I think one of the biggest things is just being reconciled to God as ambassadors. And when you think about an ambassador, especially in this sense of being an ambassador, because it's being one for God, um, ambassadors actually, they function as a representative of a ruling authority, um, a sovereign, a sovereign ruler. That's what God is, right? And so with that, I guess when you think about it, ambassador, they're the ones. I mean, they just on a political sense. I mean, they're out there meeting with different dignitaries, and they're talking about just trying to reestablish peace and methods to get to a place where everybody could just operate and function on a peaceful level. Uh, but that diplomat is actually representing the country that they were sent by. So you're basically an official representative um, to a foreign country by the person that you actually represent. And so one of the crazy things is ambassadors have full immunity. Ooh. Now, I'm not saying going out there doing anything crazy, because God ain't gonna, he's not gonna be down with that. You gotta act right, represent God. I just wanted to crack up right there. But being an ambassador, when you think about what they actually do, I mean, okay, we've already talked about it. We hit on it when they're commissioned for a special assignment. They represent the sender. Our sender is God, and they're exercising the authority of the sender. Now that to me is powerful. And you're exercising the authority of God. That means you have some of the same characteristics. Everybody, I believe, has some characteristics of God, basically like your personality. I mean, that's the closest thing I could think of. Your personality, whether it's love, peace, a good heart. Uh, some people are more serving. Some people have the gift of healing. Uh, but and some have that that gift of speaking and being real conversational and connecting with everybody. They have no problems doing that. Um, but I think about Paul, the Apostle Paul. He recognized himself as Christ's spokesman. He didn't act on his own authority, but under the commission of a greater power and authority who sent him, who is Jesus. And so he understood himself just to be connected to a divine power, and he took his job seriously. And so as an ambassador, we represent God's kingdom just like Paul, to reconcile mankind back to God, to live in an environment where we must like really rely upon him, and because he's going to be the one that actually helps us and sustain us mentally and physically and gives us the power. And when we listen to his direction, man, things just happen. Things just happen. One of the things I think about just with that is like how many people have been in a place where you actually, you heard, deep down in your heart, uh, what he wants you to do, but for whatever reason you're just stuck. But you know that there's people out there who have done it. They've operated. They moved, and so use that also as a source, um, as something that inspires you to just take that leap of faith and just go, because the world ain't gonna wait for you, and God's not gonna wait for you either. That is a truth. That is a truth. And so, as ambassadors of God for His kingdom, we must live out our lives just proclaiming God's truth. Uh, you know, speak it in a way, the truth where people could relate to. You don't have to be all hardcore. I mean, nobody's hardcore with you. And if somebody is hardcore with you, maybe they got some personal issues going on, but you don't have to display that same type of behavior, because when you think about how you really want people to interact with you, I guess that's the main thing, right? Just how would you want people to interact with you? Um, just in regular dialogue. He's given each of us like just different gifts, talents, and ideas, and our personality just to connect with other people in an authentic way, in a uniqueness that you were made. And we need to share that and add value to other people. This makes us, I mean, it just puts you like in a win-win situation. But in order to do that, you really have to take some time just to understand who you are. It goes back to that, understanding who you are and what your purpose is. And then, I mean, just think about when you are in that place where you know who you are, you know what you're capable of doing, um, what your assignment or your task is. I mean, you just think about somebody who's learned to master, um, I don't know, just making this bomb. What do you call it? Gallop. them chefs who just they brown it just enough on both sides, and it has like that little buttery but salty flavor, and it's super tender. Mm. They could go out and they could confidently make that scallop anytime, any night, because they've taken the time to master it. And when you master yourself, this world better watch out, because now you're gonna be implementing the three P's that I like to call passion, purpose, and power. You don't have to try to be someone else because you know who you are. You're walking in your purpose. Be your authentic self. So when it comes to your passions, what do you need to develop? What is your purpose and why do you exist? And how are you going to use that superpower to influence other people? You know, now that you know who you are, a renewed person who is also an ambassador, hold your head up high and take hold of your newness. God has put some ideas in your mind and it's giving you a vision of what your life is supposed to be. Now, our future is God's history, and it was set in motion prior to your existence. And you just go back and read that, how God knew you before you were in your mother's womb. You are destined for greatness. You are destined for greatness. That's going to be a whole nother series right there on this transformation. Because when you know who you are, now you know where you came from. That's, mm, let's go. Mm, mm. We gonna knock it out. Being an ambassador is challenging yourself to follow through on the ideas and the visions, being methodical, taking risk, having faith in God, while following through on the ideas that He's placed in your heart. Mm. And trust me, those ideas and things that He's placed in your heart, it's not just for you, it's for other people. It's using what you have that brings people together to unify, to provoke thought, to help them grow. And it's also going to help become a better person to actually serve. And you're going to be a resource to other people by enhancing their lives. Trust me. I'm just throwing some thoughts out there and I'm like, I just think I just need to stop it real quick in this puppy so I could just get some notes down. But with your new self and your power, how are you going to use what God has blessed you with to bless others? Now, one of the things I stated earlier was talking about the past and not no longer living in the past, because the past is the past and today is today. And when you focus on the past, it takes you out of your present. It takes you out of the day. And you spend so much energy and time just wasting away when you do that. Be in a place where you just focus on what it is you need to take care of today that's going to help you out tomorrow. Then you're just going to be working on just becoming at least 1% better today than you were yesterday. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow already has enough problems. That's in the scripture as well. What is it? Next week, next month, next year, all that stuff. That's the future. I would say plan and prepare because you never know when somebody might call your name and be like, okay, all right, John. All right, Elizabeth, let's go. I need you. You need to be prepared. Another thing, study somebody great. Study somebody great that you can identify with and incorporate some of their systems and their habits into your life. Tweak them a little bit. Now I know God has cleaned us up, made us new through Jesus. Now you must change your mindset and believe you are worthy of the new person you are and what you were created to be. Mm, mm, mm. As says, we were reconciled to Jesus. So it's not healthy to meditate on the past, but to remember where you've come from. Use it as a testimony and a lesson, and then share the things that God has actually helped you overcome. And it's whoo-wee. He's done some amazing things in a lot of people's lives. And those things need to be shared with somebody else. So one thing I definitely want to tell you is don't be so critical of yourself. Give yourself some latitude. Everyone is growing at a different pace, but they're still growing nonetheless. You are an ambassador with power and influence, representing the baddest person alive, Jesus, the one who intervenes when you need direction and intercedes on your behalf to God when you just don't have the words to express those desires of your heart. So let your faith be bigger. Let your faith be bigger than your fear, to find your purpose while working on your relationship with God as that ambassador. And remember, you are who you represent. You are your thoughts. Anything God instructs you to do or places in your heart to do it. He's placed it in there for a reason, to bring glory to him through your actions. Yes, this is D. Wells, your host. But why not you? Before I let you go, I just want you to remember, we cannot become what we need if we remain where we are. God bless. Boom. Thank you for watching this video. I'm excited about your growth and your transformation quest to become the person God created you to be. Now hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, and receive updated content resources that will assist you in your growth. Now I care about your development and your success. So please let me know what you would like me to teach on, and I'll do it. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, we cannot become what we need if we remain where we are. God bless.